We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Hey, welcome to the Supernatural Hour.
The main topic.
We have this thing of we don't know how to pronounce stuff on our show. Who wants to take a stab at this?
I'll try it.
Awesome.
Because I listened to some guys talk about on it on YouTube, and they dropped the silent T at the end. So Marcel Petiot.
I'm going to go Petiot on that.
Petiot.
He sounds French.
He's-
Oh, wait,
well,
he is French. No, I'm just
Exactly. That's why they sounded. But I took very, close, the T was silent. He's a very interesting guy. He's born in like 1897 or so, and he killed a lot of people. Quite an interesting story. Doc, you want to give us a little information that you got?
Dr. Marcel Petiot,
See, that's why you needed to do it. So,
a.k.a. Dr. Satan.
I mean, if you're going to have a moniker, go big.
Go.
Go big, go
I
home.
can't even aspire to Dr. Satan level.
I don't think you want to. I hope you don't.
He was a pretty bad dude. Yeah, you said he was born in 1897. Sounds like he had a pretty disturbed childhood.
You know, based on the things that they said were going on in his childhood, if he hadn't been a child back in the early 1900s, I think they would have figured out what the issues were. They would have figured out he was a psychopath.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't he? He was a child of privilege, and his father kept bailing him out, and that still happens today, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah, kids don't learn consequences when there's not repercussions for your actions. Marcel, as a child, did small things like bringing his dad's gun to school, soliciting sex from another student at the age of 11. He was pretty messed up.
I heard there was like animal torturing.
Yeah, torturing some animals. All of the red flags that I think would have been picked up on in the modern era. But yeah, so I was like, geez Louise. In 2020s, I don't think he would have gotten far.
Gotten that far?
I would hope not. The problem was, like you said, he never really... Oh, yeah, he also was, like, robbing things, and he was a kleptomaniac, and, lots of red flags. But he was always bailed out, and any time that he had evaluations, they were like, yeah, he's just crazy. And then they just let him go. He never
He's
really...
kind of mentally ill.
Didn't really go to jail or anything, especially at a younger age. Of course, they were just like, oh, yeah, he's just mentally ill.
And then in the early 19-teens, he went into World War I.
Yeah, he got drafted by the French army.
Because if you're going to draft people, you want to get the crazy ones, right?
Go with the crazy ones who already have experience with guns, obviously.
Don't have to train as much.
Well, he was able to get away with a lot of stuff because you blamed the resistance. Oh, I'm doing it for the resistance.
Yeah, that
Well,
was a little
World War
later.
II.
That was World War II. But you're absolutely correct, and he used, we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, a prolific liar.
It kind of blew me away. Even in World War I, he was stealing stuff, and they were like, yep, he's mentally ill. And that was about as far as it went.
So eventually, didn't they put him in a sanatorium for mental illness and the issues after or during or after World War I?
Yeah, but he got redeployed. So he was serving in 1917, and then they sent him to the front lines in 1918, even after he stole a bunch of military, army blankets, and got charged with theft. And he didn't really do any time there because they were like, oh, that crazy Marcel again.
Yeah.
Let's let him go fight on the front lines. That sounds good.
You can follow up on this, Doc, because of your medical credentials, but I think it said it took him something like 8 months to become a doctor.
Yeah, which I'm sure was normal for the time, but holy cow. 8 months for a mentally ill guy to become a doctor. That's frightening, actually.
Well, there wasn't as much to learn in 1918,
Yeah.
I guess, either.
You either chop it off or you don't. I guess
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of where we stop.
Yep. Yep.
That's true.
When you're out of leeches, you're pretty much done.
I was reading through with his deployment on the front lines. He shot himself in the foot, and that is kind of what led to him being evaluated again for a mental illness. And they were like, "Yep, he's crazy," and they discharged him on disability. and they recommended that he be committed to an asylum at that time. But instead, they gave him an accelerated education program for veterans, and he became a doctor.
Wow, what an incredible
The-
program.
The person that I want in charge of my medical needs is the crazy
We need to
guy.
institutionalize this guy. You know, I'll do you one better. Let's just rush him through med school. That's, yeah, scary.
Let's put him in charge of something.
Oh, they do that too.
Oh yeah, no, he's
Yeah.
in charge of more than just being, people's lives and all. Holy cow! So yeah, he ended up moving to a small village which I cannot pronounce.
'Cause it's French?
Villeneuve-sur-Yonne, or Sur-Yonne, I can't even pronounce it. And just started amassing a bunch of patients that he would find addicts and prescribe narcotics to them, because who doesn't just love gaggles of
And then
narcotics?
he would have them pay, and then what else would he do?
Yeah, he'd build the estate as well. He would double bill and get money from his patients, and then he would also apply for like state assistance as well, which is one of those things that sends you to prison for a very long time these days. It's insane what this guy was doing.
Well, apparently there's not a lot that's going to send you to prison back
just
then.
shilling dope to people and then double billing for it. So yeah, Dr. Satan is setting himself up. We haven't even gotten to the bad part yet.
Oh no, this is all. This is
very tame.
This is all tame. It gets better.
Oh my gosh.
So wasn't it about this time that he decided it'd be kind of cool to be the mayor?
Well, yeah, I think so I was reading that he ended up hooking up with one of the daughters of one of his patients, and then she mysteriously disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, did we talk about why she mysteriously disappeared?
No.
Well,
Go on.
He hired her to be like a nurse, like his
Assistant.
aide. And the neighbors, after a certain point in time, thought she looks a little pregnant.
That might be
Just-
problematic.
Might be in a motherly way. And then mysteriously she disappeared. Poof.
And there was a lot of people that were like, dude, this Marcel guy, I don't know, seems pretty suspicious. Isn't this where they saw him moving a trunk? They were like, that trunk looks like the one we found in the river with body parts in it. And despite all of that, he's like, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to run for mayor.
I'm going to become the mayor.
Despite the fact that, like, there's a whole bunch of eyeballs on you for a murder. And then the crazy thing is he wins. What is going on in France in the 1920s? That's what I want to know.
He was a doctor.
Well, everybody voting for him was,
Oh.
depended on him for their drugs.
All of
so,
his doped up patients are like, yep,
Yeah.
Now, is this
we're going Dr. Satan. He's got my vote.
Is this the same time that he was saying that he was on the resistance? And
No, that was
resisting
later still.
Okay, all right, I'll be
Because
quiet.
this is no, you're good. We're still in the 1920s, working up to the 1930s and early 40s with the war.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
he's still just in training at this point for the
we're
the
late
really big
20s.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, the girl that disappeared or whatever, well, didn't really disappear, but it was 1926. So we're getting to that 30s.
Between the wars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Dr. Satan here, who has already had a history of kleptomania and
Mental illness.
and sex addiction type stuff, and prescribing narcotics and double billing for care provided and mysterious vanishment of people he might have been in relations with, also got accused of stealing taxpayer money, cans of oil from the railroad department. Like, this guy could not stop. He just kept anything. He's like, oh yeah, I'll take that oil. Let me take the taxpayer money too. So he ended up in court again, and he was fined, and he was sentenced to 3 months was his sentence, but they overturned it again.
Because he was mentally ill.
I guess he was just crazy. This is the mayor.
So and then he either lost the mayor or they took it away from him. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, so it says he had several more years of complaints and accusations of theft. This was like from 1927 to 1931. They finally removed him from office in 1931. And only a little over a month after he was removed as mayor, he won a seat on the general council for the district. It's like after all of the accusations of theft and everything else that he's done, and then being removed
To the point that you're removed as mayor.
basically, yeah, forcefully removed as mayor, he goes and wins a seat on the general council for the district, and he was the youngest man to ever sit in that office.
But he was a doctor, and doctors are
Oh
well
my
respected.
gosh, man. But wait, there's more.
But wait,
So then while he was on the district, like the general council, he got charged with stealing electric power from the city, and he was fined there, and then he lost his seat and moved to Paris.
How did he pull that off?
I don't know, a really long extension cord. I don't know.
Yeah, something, yeah.
Yeah, electricity was pretty sweet back then. I have no idea.
Sneaking it out in his coat at night.
Just
Jeez.
batteries and charging batteries and running with it. I don't know, but holy crap, man.
it was kind of like in the 80s when we'd boost people's HBO.
That's right. We're going to splice this. So yeah, quite the run so far. And I think we're getting kind of into this. This was all like first act stuff.
'Kay.
Intermission. Now
Okay,
he's
go
going
get
into
your
second
popcorn.
act.
Let's go get some popcorn.
So 1933, he starts growing a medical practice in Paris.
Because
Once
he's
it-
done with the small town. Now he's going
Yeah.
to the big city.
Oh yeah, and you know, he had
Much more opportunity in the big city, I understand.
Yeah, he had a pretty good reputation there. Once again, was shilling drugs and making those addicts super happy. Threw on some illegal abortions as well.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well, you need to expand.
that's right. So he keeps expanding the practice, and then he's charged with kleptomania again, and then he's arrested for theft and assaulting a police officer. But he got acquitted because of
He's crazy.
insanity. This guy.
It's not
my
his fault.
Yeah, he
But
did.
let's trust him with our medical needs, right?
I know.
What?
I don't know that I want this guy anywhere near me, ever. They did say, finally, spent a few months in a sanitarium, but then he was released despite the doctor's doubts as to his sanity. And then he committed tax fraud a bunch of times. And then Germany invaded France in 1939.
And that made it all better.
Oh, and now my part comes in.
Act 2.
And I have to apologize. I did not research this very much because school started today, and so I've been like wrapped up in school. But he did tell everybody that he was on the liberation, on the fighting against the
Resistance.
Nazis.
He was in the
they
Part of the
resisted.
resistance.
Resistance. So he was on the resistance, he claimed.
Yep.
And that was part of the way that he'd tell people all these fantastic things. And it's kind of a great gig because, you help people disappear.
That's right.
There's people that wanted to get out of Nazi-occupied Paris and France, and he had quite a reputation of helping people disappear.
Yeah, he charged like 25,000
Francs, yeah.
money. Francs.
Well, and
And that's like $500,000 today.
yeah, and in addition to that, then he would tell them also to take all of the assets that they could and make them so that they could be carried, bring them in gold or change them into something that can be transported, because as you get out of the country, you're going to need those assets
Right.
when you get to your new place.
Before you get disappeared, bring everything of value to my
that
office.
you have. Everything.
bring all the family heirlooms,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, sell your properties.
You're gonna want that.
Sell your cars because you can't take them with you. You'll just lose everything if you leave it here. So just sell everything that you've got and bring it here to the office with you.
And funny enough, those people did in fact
Disappear.
disappear.
Poof. That was my part.
Where did they go?
Well, we know where parts of them went, but we will wait for that. I
Argentina,
know that.
right?
Yeah, that was the claim, right? Yeah. They're going to Argentina.
Yeah, he had quite. That was kind of the. I've got a way to get you to Argentina through. We're using Spanish resistance and French resistance to get you to Argentina so that you'll be safe there with every worldly belonging that you have ever transferred into a portable, easily scammed medium.
Right. But you know what's crazy? Argentina requires some pretty amazing vaccines. You got to get vaccinated before you go.
Right,
Must
well-
have that right now.
Got to get
Yes.
that. Got to get those booster shots, guys.
Yeah, before you go to Argentina, you've got to get vaccines in 1939. Right.
And
But
so
that was the last shot they ever needed.
that's right.
That's right. Only one.
Well, yeah, cyanide. That's their vaccine.
After all of these people brought all of their valuables to him, and he promised to make them disappear.
With a minimum of 250,000 francs, as Jess said, was like $250,000,
That's a lot.
or was it $500,000? $250,000?
$500,000.
$500,000
Half, yeah.
in today's money.
He'd give him a little shot of cyanide, and no one ever saw them again.
No, they disappeared. He promised. He got the promise.
And the way that he would I mean, obviously, you start stacking up some bodies, you got to find ways to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, the bodies he would try to dissolve in like quicklime or bury them or burn them.
Or burn them in this little stove. I saw a picture of the little stove he tried to burn them in. But you'd have to chop them up into little pieces and kind of burn them, over a long period of time. Hence, you end up with like 23 bodies in your basement.
Yeah.
Little body parts, really.
Yeah.
Oh,
in,
that's
s-
good.
in
That's gonna
suitcases.
stink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
get rid of them somehow. So what do you do?
Yeah, the neighbors actually did. I did do a tiny bit of research. The neighbors actually did call the police at one point and say, it's stinky over here. And I
Right.
think, didn't the house burn down?
Well, there was a whole bunch of smoke coming from it,
Yeah.
and there was a nasty smell coming from it. So they called the fire department. They were like, I don't know what's going on with this house, but holy cow, there's a bunch of smoke. And, someone needs to check this out. So, the firefighters are like, doo.
And he was out of town at the time.
Let's go check this thing out.
He's like, don't go in there. Wait till I get there.
Yeah.
And then they waited a long time, and they're just like, let me just go in there and bunch of body parts.
Yeah, so the police and the fire department essentially came and found the body parts of at least 10 bodies. At least 10 bodies buried in the basement, and then they found parts of other bodies kind of.
And I think they
Sure.
said if they took all the parts, because there was not one full human being, but I think they said they could make either, and I don't remember exactly, but they could make either 10 or 18 complete people with the parts that they found.
Right. But probably more than 18 people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But they could make 18 people with them.
With what
Mix
they
and
found in the
match.
basement at this point.
Of Frankenstein's monster of sorts.
Because he had disposed some of them in is it the Seine River?
Yep.
think
There in
so,
Paris.
yeah.
He had disposed
Yeah.
of some of them there, but it's hard when people start floating around, and so he's trying to think of a much better way to help these people disappear completely and permanently. And the river wasn't hacking it for him. Interesting stuff there.
Well, surprisingly, when they discovered this, he didn't really get in trouble at first because he's like, oh, it's just body parts of the people that are against resistance and all that. And they're like, all right, that's valid. Like,
Yeah, because you know
they were
what?
cool with it. Like, what?
I'm in the resistance, and I'm helping. These are the collaborators, and these are German people. These are the Germans, and these are collaborators. So that's why they're dead. That's why I'm killing these people. Is not because I'm getting 250, or 25,000 francs from them, and every worldly belonging they ever have. I'm working for the resistance.
I'm the resistance, yeah. So he said, I was a resistance fighter. Of course I killed the enemies of the French. I mean, I don't
The
know how they
perfect
ended up in
time
my
period.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah.
Bodies end up in houses sometimes, guys. That was kind of his whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys.
Well,
And-
had
and-
he lived in another time period, there's no way it would have extended this long because it's like, oh, this is a time period of war and stuff. It's cool, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was the perfect cover for him.
And then he kind of claimed he was framed and like, oh no, other people must have put those bodies in my house and stuffed them in the chimney and tried to melt them with lye.
And then he would.
Man, I hate it when that happens.
With quicklime. That wasn't me.
And then he would tell people all of these stories can be collaborated by this French resistance leader and this French resistance leader and this. And unfortunately, all of those guys had been killed,
Yeah. So,
so they couldn't collaborate.
did
that.
they also, quote, go to Argentina, unquote?
No, they'd been killed by Nazis.
Oh, well.
I mean, they were publicly, they had been publicly
Those ones were actually
executed and different things as they were found
They-
from a resistance standpoint.
They were just put to death. They weren't actually disappeared.
Yeah, they didn't disappear on their own like the Nazis made sure they didn't disappear.
Yeah.
There was a Nazi plot to try to uncover this pipeline that was getting people out of the country. Did you hear about that one?
No, go on.
I think it was the Gestapo or some part of the Nazi military, they had heard about this, and they had actually got a Jewish guy and coerced him to go and, put feelers out that he was trying to get out. The doctor had some of his drug-addicted patients kind of having their ear out for people that were doing this, and that's how he would bring these people in. Is, people would be listening, people at the bar, how can I get out of town? Well, I've got a way. I'm kind of one of those things. Well, this Jewish man that was working not by his choice for the Nazis was actually, he had told some people and they got the information, and they got him the doctor's name, and they made the connections. And so the Nazis actually found out about his system, about
the disappearing,
about how he's getting people out, and they were thinking originally it was happening.
They were actually going to
They
Argentina.
were thinking that these people are going to Argentina, and they're trying to do that. But from what they said with that, when the Nazis actually did it and came in and kind of interrogated him, questioned him, they let him go.
There was probably no proof anyone went to Argentina.
Well, I think that's
we're
it.
good. We're good.
And I think on the other end, and they didn't say this directly, but I think on the other end, he was helping them do the things they were doing with the undesirables.
Exactly.
He was
getting
killing
rid of
and
them.
disposing them.
Yep, disposing.
And
of
that
these
was
people.
part of, the Nazi thing, was to kill not only Jews, but gypsies, and anybody that had people that they
Anybody
didn't feel.
fleeing from the Germans.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're trying to get away, we don't want you to.
Yeah, and he took care of it.
So that was kind of interesting that he even got away from the Nazis. I mean, they even kind of busted his little scheme. Yeah, so kind of like if the Nazis, find out about what you're doing and then decide, it's okay, and don't take and shoot you, they must be thinking you're kind of working on their side. Anyway, kind of interesting for that part.
So
If you're bad enough for the Nazis to think you're bad, I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything to stop it.
It's like joining their team.
True.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. I mean, the way that they found all these bodies, he wasn't immediately arrested, right? Like, he fled.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like he went into hiding with one of his patients. But he had a lot of people around him that I think were either willing to vouch for him or at least not out him for what he was doing, including, I mean, he was married. We mentioned that a little bit, I think. But his wife was likely a co-conspirator, as she was profiting from all of this.
$250,000 per pop, and
double billing for medical,
Yeah. Well,
care. Geez.
and that was just the getting out of town. That wasn't anything else they had cashed out and bringing with them.
Yeah.
That was the entrance fee, not everything that they may have brought with them.
Yeah, so you could see how, I guess, with enough money and enough drugs, you can hide for a while.
Yep.
Well, he'd spent a lifetime in self-promotion too, and he really did have apparently a lot of fans out there among the general public and people that believed his stories that he was a real resistance fighter.
Yeah.
So they did try to hide him as a hero.
Yeah, it sounds like once they finally captured him, put him on trial, he was charged with 27 murders, but he claimed he killed a total of 63 Germans and collaborators because, they were all bad guys that he was taking care of.
That's all he killed was collaborators and Germans.
63 between the years 1940 and 1945. He was found guilty of the 27 murders and 99 other criminal charges and was sentenced to death by guillotine. And he was sentenced to death on May 25th, 1945. And his last words, I don't know why I find these funny. It's, "Gentlemen, I ask you not to look. This will not be very pretty."
Well, the interesting thing I found when it came to his execution is they said he just seemed so nonchalant about it. Like he didn't even care. He wasn't worried. I mean, this man was so psychopathic. He had no feels for anything, even himself.
It's just like, hey, guys, it's going to be a messy. See ya.
And it's like, I had a good run.
And I do have to go back to his wife. If you were his wife, wouldn't you be like sleeping with one eye open? I mean, wouldn't you be afraid to make you mad?
Yeah, I mean, he was already involved with another woman who mysteriously vanished in a trunk.
Maybe he's not someone that gets mad. He's just someone that kind of murders you.
And gets even.
Yeah, he might be a little more sneaky. But
But there's a lot of like serial killers or whatever that like the wife joins in because it's like they become like obsessed or very like attached to this person, and they would do anything for them. So maybe it's one of those mindsets.
Yeah, and oftentimes they feed off each other. They didn't
Maybe
really
she
say
was
that
just
so
as
much.
crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think the 63 people that he admitted to killing to was a form of confession for him? Where I'm sure he was keeping tabs, right? Like crazy people do stuff like that. He's like, yeah, he charged me with 27, but I would tell you,
It's 60.
I killed 63, but they were all bad guys, so I'm innocent. Right?
My take would be that that's probably his count.
Yeah, I would think so. He probably wanted people to know, but not at the same time. I think he wanted the notoriety, the infamy that came with it, but at the same time was still able to claim
That he was doing it all for
Yeah.
the glory of
resistance.
France and the resistance.
the resistance. But yeah.
Okay, that was
Well, he wanted-
awesome.
He wanted that money. I mean, apparently he got over like $2 million doing all that.
Oh yeah, you just think of the numbers. If he's getting 250,000 from even half of the people that
Oh yeah.
that were there and dead.
Yep. Plus all the jewelry
Plus-
and the gold and
yeah.
everything else they brought with them to start a new life in a new country. Jeez Louise. So yeah, I'll bet there's some bad juju associated with Mr. Marcel Petiot.
And
I read there's actually a French movie that was released in 1990 about his life during the World War II years. I'd like to see if there's a copy of that available.
Do
Maybe
you
with
remember what it was?
subtitles.
Do you remember what it was called?
Docteur Petiot.
With accent.
D-O-C-T-E-U, Docteur. Well, my grandfather was a full-blooded Frenchman.
I was about to say our one French viewer is now unsubscribed.
Yeah. I did take French in junior high because I had a crush on the French teacher.
Aw, that's cute.
Which, what better reason?
That's right.
This is not the first time we've done a podcast about a serial killer. And you might ask, you're a paranormal podcast. Why on earth are you doing serial killers? We're not a true crime podcast. But the thing about it is you think about just how heavy, just all the horrible things that this man did and all the body parts down in his basement, so there's obviously dismemberment. And it would, is that house still standing? Is the building still there? Serial killers, just because of what they do, are just a magnet for troubled
stuff.
spirits, dark spirits. I mean, he probably had type 3s, evil spirits around him. It's just a hotbed for some paranormal activity.
He probably left a trail of negative energy and horrible residual energy everywhere he went.
yeah, and
Yeah, I wonder too what happens like when he dies. Like, is he around? Does he have like feelings, or does he cause negative energy now? Is he, what does he turn into? I don't know.
yeah, or does he move through something? I kind of envisioned people like this might be a little bit like in the movie Ghost, where you remember
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy that actually killed Patrick Swayze when he got killed, where those black things came and grabbed and pulled him down to hell. I thought that was kind of cool. That's what I hope.
I was a little worried you were going to reference the pottery scene.
Well, there's that too.
Oh, the evil
Oh,
part
I-
of Ghost. Yes,
Oh, yeah,
not the,
Couldn't
not the
sleep
romantic
for days
Ghost.
after the pottery scene. That was horrible.
Oh, the
Yeah.
embrace from behind and everything. Creepy.
When we were watching that documentary, yeah,
Yeah,
Braden's
bad
just
stuff.
shaking her head. We talk about that there are our type 2s, that there's the ones that are coerced, and then there's the ones that were just really awful people at this point. And I think that there's maybe some people not crossing over into the next realm, and some people maybe not wanting to go. But I think some people, some entities, some spirits may not really have much of a choice if they've done things way beyond.
Right. So what I want to kind of throw out there is to our listeners. We've got listeners all over the world.
Uh-huh.
Seriously, all over the world. I was actually kind of surprised at that. I joke that we've got, our 4 listeners, and that's kind of a running joke we do every once in a while. But we actually have a pretty good audience. And if any of you are in France, or will be going to France, find this person's house, go there, even if you have to be like creepy stalk, which we have done before, and just stand across the street, put out your feels, take your equipment. I want to know.
Yeah. Or if you've ever been there, let us know.
Yeah, if you've
Post a
been there,
picture. Send us a picture.
send us a picture. I mean, maybe the building's gone and maybe there's a post office there now or something, but go stand there.
But, Paris is so old that there's a lot of buildings that survived the war.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
You were just in London, and how many buildings there predate the war that you were? I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of them, right?
Well, yeah, a lot of them were rebuilt, but
Yeah,
they-
because of the bombing. But
right,
there's
but the
also
structures are
a
still
lot of
there.
the structures that were there, and so there's a good possibility that the building may still be standing. Can you imagine being the guy that the fourth or fifth or sixth guy that's rented this and doesn't know all of the stuff that was going on in that house?
Doesn't understand why pea shoots out of his toilet. That's hard to say. Pea soup shoots out of his toilet.
What is this?
Yeah, it would be interesting to.
No,
Yeah.
we'll just go give him this podcast. Give this a listen.
Perfect.
Here's a realtor's number. Here's
well,
our nu-
growing up,
here's
I
our
had
number.
like this. I had this thought of like, there's eventually going to be running out of room where people didn't die. Like, I started having that thought. Like, when I grow up and I get my own house, like, someone's probably died in it because there's no other houses left. Like, I don't know.
I'm having a squirrel moment. Jess, your microphone makes all these pretty colors.
Yeah, I can also lightly touch the top and it goes mute, so I love it.
I need
But yeah,
that
the
microphone.
pretty colors. Yeah.
Send me a link.
Okay.
It's pretty.
For sure.
I mean, and the sound quality is not bad either.
Okay,
Just throwing it out there.
back to our podcast.
But the lights are fabulous.
I'm easily
course.
my name is Raven. I'm easily distracted by shiny things.
True.
'Kay.
All right. Well, that was an
shiny.
interesting main topic.
Stay spooky, my haunty friends.
Have a good one.
Hey, good night.
Bye.
See you next time.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright by Advanced Paranormal Services.